a wonderful discussion that is on telemedicines and its future perspectives. First of all, I would like to introduce West Bengal Sustainable Business Council, WIKI, which is putting forward this program for you. Now, WBSBC WIKI is the first independent national business chamber for women that is established in India. Women Chambers of Commerce with the active and intense global network and support of all and Women Economic Forum. Now, WIKI aims to bring about fundamental changes in government policies, laws, incentives with a view to robustly engage, encourage, and empower women in business, industry, and commerce across all sectors and fields. And they are doing this with very robust strategic plans. Majorly, what they aspire to do is from time to time build concrete steps which will be sustainable and recommend with the recommendations of relevant government authorities and institutions to help solve many of our challenges to empower women-owned businesses become more competitive and more scalable. So basically, WIKI WBSBC will develop different areas of focus and specializations in order to maintain women's voices and uphold women's interest in policymaking at multiple levels to help women get better incentives, approved access to finances, and other measures that empower the ease of doing business and the competitiveness of sustainable businesswomen. It also takes on the humongous target of representing 1 lakh women in due course of time. And they are moving forward with this under the able guidance of the President, Dr. Noyan Mitra, and the Vice President. In fact, to set tone to this in a very short span of time, they have put forward the first insightful webinar on corporate CSR fund utilization post COVID-19, which was conducted recently and was very highly acclaimed, got press coverage in Business Economics of the webinar and as well as in Indian CSR. In addition to that, WIKI WBSBC has also collaborated with a reputed university, which is the Deakin University of Australia, for setting up international entrepreneurships that will provide 10 undergraduate students interested in the area of sustainable businesses and social enterprises. The list is long. They have many upcoming programs like the Rise and Shine program, another which is Fact Not Fiction, and also another strategic program called Nudge for Change. This being the foreground, and they looking at various aspects and arenas. Another very interesting aspect that was identified was the aspect of telemedicine and its relevance and importance in the current Indian context, especially looking at a rural healthcare. As we all know, health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. And especially in an Indian context, access to good health care, especially in the rural perspective, has been a challenge with the limitation in the number of doctors and the desire of the doctors to move into the rural perspective. Now, keeping this in mind, first of all, I would like to, and since we are discussing telemedicine, I would like to introduce our first speaker for the panel discussion, Mr. Ramanathan V, who is a startup enthusiast. Welcome, Mr. Ramanathan. Mr. Ramanathan is a startup enthusiast with 2.5 decades of experience in operations and strategic leadership across the healthcare sector, and he has also mentored and helped healthcare startups raise funding. I think 10 plus startups that he's mentoring and guiding right now. Mr. Ramanathan, can you please share your perspectives of where telemedicine stands in the Indian context as well as the world context, and what is the future for telemedicine?
Okay, thanks, Sureka. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity. I think before we start talking about telemedicine of today, we probably need to look back onto what was its state a couple of months ago, right? If we were to talk about, say, last year, end of last year, November, December 2019, I had a similar sort of a conversation with one of the magazines which covers focused on startups, and they were asking my perspective about what does telemedicine mean to you at this point of time. So my response at that point of time was it's a failed promise, right? That was my comment at that point of time. Why I say that is there have been entrepreneurs, there have been startups, there have been large industrial houses which have been working on this telemedicine as a concept, as a technology, right, for quite some time. I think I know startups which have been working for the last 10, 12 years in the telemedicine space.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, they couldn't really break ice. They couldn't really scale. They couldn't really grow. Yeah, the need part of it is very clear. I think gaps galore is healthcare that we have in India. In whichever dimensions we look at, whether we are looking at doctor, patient, bed to patient ratio, nursing staff to patient ratio, ICU to patient ratio. I think all the places there are enough to be filled. And telemedicine was something which people thought would really fill in the gaps that we see in our healthcare system, particularly the primary healthcare. Unfortunately, it did not happen. I think the adoption challenges, the hurdles, the road barriers which was there was not allowing people to progress. Then came COVID. COVID came in and it put all the stakeholders into a situation where they were compelled to sort of adopt telemedicine as the way to go, particularly from the OPD point of view, outpatient diagnostics, outpatient perspective. Now, one of the important things which happened during that point of time is the policy enablement which happened at that point of, like the telemedicine policy, which was gathering dust for a few years, maybe more than 5 years, I would say, was not sort of worked upon by the government, quickly was approved, and telemedicine became legal, consulting through telemedicine became legal, prescribing through telemedicine became legal, and suddenly we started having a scenario, a circumstance which compelled the stakeholders to look at telemedicine, and the government also enabled through the policy, the bottlenecks which were there were suddenly removed, and we saw a sudden interest, spurt of activity in telemedicine. So currently, if you are looking at whether it is private hospitals, large corporate hospitals, certain public facilities have started embracing telemedicine, particularly for primary healthcare as well as specialist OPDs. Now, what we see as future, McKinsey has predicted that in a couple of years, the industry around telemedicine could be $500 billion, which is about $250 billion worth of activity. So there is a lot of bullishness about how telemedicine could prosper. And obviously, as that telemedicine technology penetrates, more and more people touched upon, I think impact around it is also going to be humongous. So I think we are in a very interesting phase as far as telemedicine is concerned. We had a gray area some time back. The COVID was a catalyst, and now we are seeing a big opportunity, telemedicine as a sort of a panacea to quite a lot of the healthcare gaps that we see in India particularly.
Thank you, Mr. Ramanathan. That was very interestingly put. I would like to introduce here the next panelist, Dr. Lalit Ranjan Malik, doctor himself. Dr. Manik, my apologies. Dr. Manik is the co-founder of MedTel and Datwell and has over a decade of innovative experiences in primary care, digital health, teletriage. He has worked as a consultant with World Health Organization, India, Ministry of Health, Saudi Arabia, and National Health Services, UK. Dr. Manik, as Mr. Ramanathan mentioned before COVID, when he was addressing telemedicine, he said he used the coinage of failed promises. I believe MedTel has been in the ecosystem pre-COVID and now doing really well post-COVID. We would like to hear your perspectives from the organization's point of view. How do you think the mindset of people has changed? Do you think if COVID would not have happened, the growth spurt would have been as it is now?
Thank you for the introduction, Sarika, and thank you, Ramanathan, for giving a real, I'll be saying the the practical experience what he has shared now. But in my, I have been associated with the digital health like since 2019, 2009. So it's almost 11 years. So we have provided telemedicine services even in feature phone. So this is Medtel is my second startup by Medtel, and before it is Hello Doctor 24/7. So I was working as I was a medical student in a government medical college. So we have seen patients closely, the problems. So in 2008 and 9, when we started Hello Doctor and we thought of ideating Hello Doctor, the challenge was the same. I'd be telling you my experience. A patient, a mother is waiting for his second son to die from malaria. So that was my turning point of adding innovations beyond clinical practice. So then only we thought that there is asymmetry of clinical information. So, but there are resources where you can use digital health technology and telemedicine technology can enable and reach last mile and solve the common problems and the unmet needs. So what I will tell that the post-COVID and pre-COVID, I'll be telling you there was a time from 2009 to 15, at 16, and 2016 to 20. So 2009 to 15, there was a challenge of internet. And 2016, it is a post-Geo and pre-Geo era. In the post-Geo, the people in the rural village, and if you are today, we are talking about the rural scenarios. So before 2016, there was no internet. Even there was internet rich, but it not as like the data consumption that people are now doing today. They're using YouTube, they're using Facebook, they're using WhatsApp. So their consumption for internet has tremendously increased because of Geo. So at that time, we are not even thinking of providing telemedicine service in the rural areas. But we are at that time, we are providing through only feature phone. The prescription was sent through SMS, text message. And sometime also we are sending the emails, and the medicine store downloads it from the email and again give a printout to the patient. There was time, but now the patient is getting in WhatsApp, text message, everywhere the prescription is being sent. So what has happened post-COVID and pre-COVID, I'd be telling you, this is the internet challenge that was pre-Geo and post-Geo. And I'll be telling you in the provider side, the doctor side. So we call it necessity is the way to invention. So it is the same way. There was a necessity in post-COVID. People felt doctors felt what are the other ways to explore it. Even before COVID, we are going to doctors and telling them we have solutions, you can extend it, and they were telling there was need was not established. To be honest, even the patient side, the caregivers, patients, they are not feeling that okay, how can a doctor prescribe me without just by seeing me over video and audio? So what has happened post-COVID in the last 9 months? We have served more than 20,000 patients over telemedicine. So
congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. So what has happened before COVID and after COVID? What we felt, we are serving before COVID in the remote locations, and there are so many success stories we have gathered. But post-COVID, the number just went up, so that we observed. But the real thing happened from the provider side. The doctors, communities took interest in telemedicine because they are the pillar of whole ecosystem of telemedicine. The doctors, when the doctors wanted to involve themselves for the telemedicine, then the sky is the limit. What is happening now? And there are other challenges we'll be discussing during the course, during this discussion. But I'll be telling you the most important bias was there are a lot of things like medicine, lab services, vitals. Even a patient is just telling I am having blood pressure of this, that, but it is all assumption. Doctor is just feeling that okay, what the patient is saying, that is correct. So with assumption, doctor sometimes is not able to give a justice to the patients just by knowing that your blood pressure is this, blood pressure is this. sometimes doctor is in fear that if I'll give medications for diabetes, there is a chance of increased blood sugar and decreased blood sugar, sudden decrease and increase. So there are challenges we'll be discussing, but there has increased adoption for telemedicine, and doctors are playing an important role because the need has been established for both the providers and the patients.
Thank you so much, Dr. Manik. And while the spotlight is still on you, if you could share in a couple of lines the states in which you're operating now, and who are the target audiences that you're catering to right now, and how important has technology and technological intervention been in your journey?
Yeah, I would be saying that our like major presence in Odisha, even in West Bengal, even Andhra Pradesh, but in this COVID we have served around 20 states, because it is only because if somebody is getting service so easily and he is referring patient, we have serving patient even from Australia in this COVID. So because
so international patients also.
Yes.
So Australians in India or Australians in Australia?
Australia, like NRI, like you can call them.
Okay, so Indians in Australia.
Yes.
Okay.
because those are getting service in India, they are saying, okay, you can use this number, you can call them, or you can send a request and all. So what has happened also, we have tied up with many corporates to provide them telemedicine services, because the way we have established, we are providing a multi-channel platform. Like you can do just only by missed call. You can just do just send a request through WhatsApp chatbot. You can also buy our app. So there are multi-channel telemedicine platform. So if we served in Uttar Pradesh, in the rural Uttar Pradesh, that we just by a missed call, a patient just giving a missed call, and we have a call center. We are connecting with doctors and also giving a prescription to directly to his mobile through WhatsApp message and also text message. Even to the pharmacies, we are sending the prescriptions. So the most important thing I'll be telling you, the technology, how user-friendly tools you can extend to the patients or the last mile users. That we cannot restrict them. You just need to download the app. You just need to give a missed call. You should open the platform, so wherever they can access. There are elderly people who just give a missed call, or they love to call rather going through the app and sending their prescription payments. A lot of things are there. So what we did in this COVID, and also before COVID, we are doing the same thing, and the adoption has increased because it needs to be multi-channel if you are focusing on the rural. Because urban there are access, but if you think the 70% population in the rural areas, the major challenge in the rural area, doctors are mainly focusing on the urban cities. So what we did, the multi-channel way that we extended to the rural areas, we told to the collector of the Deoria districts that, sir, just provide this missed call number, all patient can be solved. They told how it can be possible. We told that whatever the missed call comes, our call center guys will call back them and know their problem and all. So, and also we sought through NGOs, non-government organizations. They are also willing to extend their services through like it's a free service, and they are paying us because the doctors has to be, at the end of the day, we need to pay the doctors and need to engage them. Even doctors are so friendly with us because they understand that, okay, we don't need to charge much from the rural areas, from the rural people. We need to have very nominal charge from the rural people or any organization going to support. So the most important thing is the doctors' engagement, and the providers are giving a tremendous support to us to extend our services to rural area. I'll be telling you one example here. In the urban cities, our service charges are different. For rural areas, we provide a different slab for the rural areas, because we tell to our doctors, these are the patients, they are from rural areas, and these are the patients from the urban cities. So it is only because of the doctors, and we always, even I'll be telling you one thing in the for now. So the number of the soft centers in India where the ANM provides services, it's around more than 1.5 lakhs.
Correct.
You just imagine these centers can be like centers where the patient can collect medicines, and a central call center can operate throughout India to provide teleconsultations. You just imagine that all virtual clinics can be operated. These are all possibilities in the next future. What Mr. Ramanathan told, that the trillion-dollar industries in just coming in, and hopefully next 10 to 15 years we'll be seeing a lot of possibilities will be there.
Thank you, Dr. Mane. Picking up one point that you mentioned, that the telemedicine has been able to pick up because the doctors suddenly decided to promote it. On that note, I would like to understand Mr. Ramanathan's perspective. Is it because the doctors are promoting, or is it because of the ecosystem, or is it because of the price point that you feel that telemedicine is suddenly starting to grow?
Okay, that's a very good question. So again, to reflect back, one of the challenges when Dr. Manik talked about in the initial phase, when we were talking about telemedicine, when we were bringing it to the market, one of the challenges that we faced was adoption from the physicians, right? Doctors, I've had this opportunity of having discussions with doctors where they used to tell me each telemedicine consultation takes about 15 minutes, right? Again, when we are talking about consultation, we are talking about putting in the ID of the patient, name of the patient, weight, vitals, vitals, and then you are talking about prescribing and things like that, right? So all this. And here the data entry through the keyboard, etc., is not that very familiar and that very comfortable from a physician standpoint. So if you were to look at a practical current situation, probably in 15 minutes, the doctor would see at least 3 or 4 patients, right?
At least 3.
Yeah, at least 3. Yeah.
At least 3.
At least 3. Particularly when you're looking at medical institutions, the pre-work part, like for example, taking your name, taking your initial symptoms, creating the history part is done by a junior person, and the physician per se, the specialist, probably spends about 2 minutes with you. Okay, let's not debate that. Let's say 3 patients in 15 minutes. So they used to turn around and ask, saying that, can I charge 3 times more for telemedicine? If it were 500, can I take 1,500 for this? Obviously not, right? I think telemedicine cannot pay that sort of a remuneration from a physician standpoint. So this used to be the challenge. One is time spent. Second is the keying in part, which was very, very difficult. So they were hesitating to look at telemedicine as a means of managing their patient OPDs.
Okay.
Looking at from the hospital perspective, which is other important stakeholder here, they were also looking at telemedicine as a tool to pull in patients. It was a hook. So they used to use it as a marketing tool. You put the telemedicine.
It was like the trailer to the movie.
Correct. Trailer to the movie. They used to use that as a means of bringing the patients to the main center, right? You do the initial consultation, ask them to come to the main center, wherever it is, and then take the services from then on. So from both these perspectives, we had challenges. Now, with COVID coming in, people started realizing that there is no other go. OPDs were khali. Doctors were not able to manage. They were not able to even talk to their patients. Patients on the other side wanted consultation, wanted opinion, wanted prescriptions. Nothing could happen. So that is when people were, I would say, forced to adopt telemedicine as a means, right? Now, having said that, in the last 6-8 months, I think we have seen people adopting, people getting familiar, patients getting familiar. People used to say, I've had this opportunity where I used to take my mother to a telemedicine center to talk to the pulmonologist, and she used to always come back and say, I don't feel comfortable. I didn't feel nice about this whole activity itself. Why can't I meet the doctor personally? That smile, that handshake, that assurance from the physician's face is very important for patients. So that was completely missing. Now people are completely accepting it. Patient is okay with doing telemedicine video calls. Doctors are comfortable doing the prescription over the telemedicine platforms. I think robust platforms are getting created, whether it is e-diagnostics, whether it is e-pharmacy. Several add-ons are being put around the telemedicine ecosystem in the last 7-8 months. And slowly we are seeing a situation where probably telemedicine would sustain for future also. It's not going to be a flash in the pan because of COVID, but it could also probably sustain as time goes by. So that is the situation that we are in. Today, large corporates have made bold statements saying that they are going to increase their OPD through virtual, through the telemedicine platform from their current 15% to 50% in 3-year time. So by doing that, they are obviously making the access of healthcare, access of primary healthcare particularly, definitely enabled. That is one part of the whole thing. But look at it from a stakeholder point of view from the hospital. OPD occupies the most important real estate, which is the ground floor of a hospital. Now release that ground floor, put more diagnostics facility there, put a CT, put a MR, put other devices there, which could probably earn more for the hospital. It becomes much more a viable proposition for the hospital to release and curtail the OPD activity and use virtual health, use the telemedicine as a platform, and definitely get benefits on their commercial activity. So every stakeholder, whether it is a patient, whether it is a physician, whether it is a hospital, I think together telemedicine is probably offering a very good sustainable option for future also. So adoption for future is definitely going to be there.
Interesting. In fact, the analogy in terms of the business perspective from the OPD vis-a-vis the diagnostic and MRIs is something that I personally would like to deep dive, but which is not covered within the perspective of this webinar. But it's a very interesting perspective that you have shared. And like you said, necessity is the mother of all inventions, and COVID here has been the necessity that led to the push towards a solution that was already existing. But because of some inertia, that people were a little reluctant to take it up. With time, they have become acclimatized or accustomed to this, and now they are getting to use it and understand the benefits of this. But as we said, India is a vast country, and if you are talking about the rural perspectives, and since telemedicine is so heavily dependent on two criteria, one is technology and the other is telecom bandwidth. So I would like to ask Dr. Manik here, how has his experience been with both these perspectives, with the rural people accepting that they're just talking over a phone and getting their prescriptions, and in terms of connectivity, there must be cases where mid-discussion, the connectivity must have gone off. Was there any negative outcome of that? Because in villages, this kind of negative output spreads very fast. And how have you dealt with that?
So most important thing is like the vitals, like when the patient is talking from home over phone, like or video, so doctor is willing to have the vitals. Like we need to use telediagnostics. So we are now presently providing remote patient monitoring. So we are giving a set of kit devices. We have worked with a couple of hospitals in this COVID time for the remote patient monitoring of COVID patient even. So we are giving Bluetooth-enabled devices, the pulse oximeter we are giving, blood pressure,
so that
blood
would
sugar.
be in the urban sector, not in the rural, right?
Yeah, I'm just giving a comparison that how the same scenario, if you need urban patients need to send his vitals through telediagnostics or the connected devices or the connected IoT devices like Internet of Medical devices. So what I'm trying to communicate here, like the same thing in the rural areas, people cannot have the gadgets, the high-end gadgets. It will be a cost for them. So
very true. That's why we want to understand.
Yeah. So what exactly we are already work in that in the same way that how to solve that problem. So we provide the pharmacies, labs, we enable them with the technology so that we give them technology solutions. We give them connected devices. We give them.
So when you say you enable them with the technology, does that mean you put the technologies or the devices there, or they procure it from you?
Yeah, there is an asset light model for us that we give them devices. They buy the device and they pay for the software solutions, the telemedicine software solution on their subscription. So there, and also in the West Bengal, we are working with the government that providing the set of devices to the rural health workers. So they will be going door to door and they will also send us vitals, which is very important part in the telemedicine. If doctor doesn't have the prescriptions, past history and the past medical history, and also the current vitals, they cannot have. So now the technology we can bring to the last mile through using the connected medical devices like the ECG, spirometer, all in a small kit bag. These are all portable devices, and these are all certified devices. So the most important thing that how the rural people can avail these services, either they need to have a teleclinic in their localities. Like as I was talking about, there are 1,50,000 sub centers. So which can be a future telemedicine center. So here people can come down, and it is just a 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer out from their home. So they can come down there and they can be tested through the connected devices. And these data can be immediately transferred to the doctor, and doctor can see can give the prescription immediately. And also the health workers, they can also take the devices door to door. If there is in a village, we can empower. There are multiple ways, the SHG, self-help groups and all. We are presently working with the health workers and also the pharmacies, standalone diagnostics. We are giving them tools and they are connecting the patients. Then their patient is getting the medicine from the same pharmacy. So this has been a successful model, and there are many organizations in India also. They are working on the similar asset-light model in other states. So there are and also the government setups, like the government health workers, whoever working, they can also empower with, because if you see the health workers, I think the ANMs, 40,000 ANMs, then 45,000 Anganwadi workers and ASA workers, they can also empower with tools, because this can be the bulk. These devices are very cheap. So this can be provided to these last mile providers who can use these and on the doorstep. So this will be for the government. I think this will be very cost effective. When people are telling that doctors are not there in PSCs, there are doctors not available. And if you'll tell the cardiologist, like in India, there are 4,000 cardiologists, where there is a need is 80,000 cardiologists. You just imagine in a district headquarter hospital. Do you think you can have a cardiologist in district headquarter hospital? It is not possible in India. And do you think how many skin specialists in district level hospitals? It's very hardly you will get skin specialists in district level hospitals.
But Dr. Manik, when we talk about skin specifically, it is one of the ailments where look and feel is very important in doing a proper diagnostics. Let's say for general medicine or diabetes, even when the doctor is seeing you, he bases his decision on whatever reports is there. But in case of skin, or let's say cancer, look and feel plays a very important role. So how do you deal with that in case of telemedicine?
We have highest success rate in skin cases.
Oh, because that's wonderful to hear.
Yes. So we just need to send a picture. You just imagine how the problem can be solved. Okay. Just need to send a picture, and there are so many tools are coming in. So the AI enabled tools, that image analysis can be done in future, so that a single image can be sent through a WhatsApp or any platform. So immediately the diagnosis can happen, or immediately can reach to the doctors. The provisional diagnosis can be referred to a doctor who will take the final decision, and also can prescribe medicines. So in our case, to be honest, I'll be telling you, there are so many cases in rural areas. They don't see that, okay, these skin cases cannot be cured, because they don't have access to skin and VD specialists. So what they usually do, they go to a pharmacy and they take some steroids and other medicines, and again the problem continues. But here what we solve, I think we have solved around 15,000 skin cases, and there are cases, success stories. The patient is struggling for 4 years, his face is completely black, and he is just getting a new life like after getting the treatment. This is a real case we have solved. So these things need to be taken seriously, that how we can enable. Suppose I'll be telling you, I'm just thinking that this way, that if government promotes telemedicine, there are so many ads are coming in for many other activities. So how, if the government going to promote in TVs and in other channels, that how telemedicine is going to important role, and people will start adopting. You just think of the digital payments, that how it has been accepted by anyone on the last mile, even if the ATM, digital payments and all, people really felt it. And there are so many comment mechanisms. They try to communicate people, and there's so many advertisement. happened. But this telemedicine also, government should to take proactive actions. I think this will be really helpful for the government, especially if you think of the rural areas, because government will play a pivotal role for the rural communities. Urban, it is fine for the private players are there, they have the access, but the rural areas, government needs to take bold steps to reach to make telemedicine really happen on the ground level.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Manik. Mr. Ramanathan, coming back to you, we heard wonderful perspectives and a lot of positive feedbacks on how telemedicine is helped people during these times. I would like to understand your perspective, because we are there in unprecedented times. Therefore, our actions also have been defined to these unprecedented times. Once we get back to normal, once doctors are able to see the patients again, the patients are able to go to the doctors again, do you think this trend will stay, or would there be a fallback?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question. See, looking at it from an adoption perspective, as we discussed some time back, we can see that hospitals particularly have started looking at telemedicine as a strategic enabler for their services, right? They do not want all the patients to be coming to their facility.
Yeah,
Some
but
of these,
don't you think hospitals are majorly based on the consumer psych
yeah, I
here?
agree.
Because
I agree. But then let's look at both rural and urban scenarios and talk about one particular specific case. Let's talk about specialty OPDs, right? Primary care and specialty OPDs, both of them, you don't have to go back every visit to a physician, right? Particularly when you're doing follow-ups, you don't have to go for a visit to the hospital for a follow-up. You can use telemedicine for that. Remote location, we talked about the fact that in India, there aren't specialists available in remote rural areas, right? So
correct.
that access building can be definitely done by the telemedicine. So what probably would happen is telemedicine will find a niche, specific areas where it can be utilized effectively. Now, having said,
are you suggesting it will be a complementary add-on?
Yeah, it will definitely complement. It will become a main lane also in certain cases. Now, one of the other challenges is on the technology side also. See, today, if you look at the various people who are offering telemedicine as a solution, I'm talking a very general statement, not in specific to any organization here. Most of them are using this voice-based consulting as a technology. I think Dr. Manik underlined it, right? We need to have connected health as the motive, wherein several devices are interfaced into telemedicine. Telemedicine need to have a backend of a EHR, right? The data from the patient, data of the patient has to be completely taken into the backend so that there is an archival and there is a future referencing possible. Forget about AI. AI is far away from there. So first and foremost, do we have a robust system wherein, number one, the vital information, for example, if you're talking about a pulmonology patient, you would like to have their you would like to have their heart rate, you would like to have their pulse oximetry, if probably a spirometry, all these data, which are the diagnostic information, has to be fed into the telemedicine. That is number one. Number two, this data has to be captured into the system so that you can archive, you can refer or reference to it at a later point of time. That is also important, right? So once the connected health is really made possible, right? I think Dr. Manik used the word remote monitoring some time back, right? Remote monitoring is a very important thing. Today, there are so many patients who are there who could not be probably accessing healthcare facility. Why can't we do remote monitoring for them? Why do you have to be taken to a health facility in order to do a checkup or look at gathering a few vital information and altering their prescriptions? So what I'm saying is the level ground would be that telemedicine will find a sweet spot within the hospital workflow, right? For that, another important thing, again, talking about it from the technology, how well does the telemedicine adopt to the workflow within a hospital? Like we talked about, we talked about skin ailments. right? It could be spin, it could be pulmonology, it could be ENT. How do we integrate all these peripheral devices and make it as a smooth workflow, seamless workflow for the patient? Once patients start seeing the value that by sitting at home or wherever I am able to get a equivalent type of a service from the healthcare facility through the telemedicine. Why haggle all the way traveling to the healthcare facility? Putting again from a rural perspective, the larger time is spent for traveling from a location to a location where specialist facility is available. Not only does it take away time, but also livelihood, right? Apart from the patient, there is one more person who is traveling. So two persons' livelihood for that particular day or that particular activity period time is completely lost. So once people start seeing the value, I think it's about every stakeholder finding their own sweet spot around it. Hospital finding their sweet spot, the doctors finding their sweet spot, patients finding their sweet spot. Once that sort of an assembly happens, I think telemedicine would stay for a period of time. I think telemedicine also need to evolve from the current teleconsult, right, video consult mode, and they need to have a complete platform of all these that we talked about, whether it is remote monitoring, whether it is connected health, the EHR backend. Once that whole system is available, I think definitely it will be embraced. It could be like, for example, again talking about rural, it could replace a PHC in toto. Today we talk about so many ailments around PHC, right? Doctors are not available on time. It is not optimally utilized. Machines get damaged very fast. The asset is not being properly managed. There are so many stories that we hear. Now, imagine that we have a PPP model. I think Dr. Manik talked about government facilitating. So I would think this model, like a PPP model, could be a good government intervention, right? You put PPPs, you have a healthcare facility. I think success for it is already there. There are some people who have already done that. All we need to do is scale it up and put this model in place so that a private operator does a PHC like telemedicine clinic, and that clinic can service quite a lot of the primary health and specialty OPDs. I think that is possible, that is imminent, and that will definitely happen over a period of time.
That's wonderful perspectives, Mr. Ramanathan. And as we know, in rural areas, especially the women are unable to access healthcare facilities because, like you mentioned, there's a question of livelihood getting impacted every time somebody has to go to a certain distance. And women being always treated as the second citizen in rural perspectives, people tend to neglect the disease or the ailment till the last minute. So are you suggesting that because with the rural telemedicine coming in and the rurals being able to access healthcare, at least primary healthcare, at a much earlier stage, we will see a much lower morbidity and mortality rate in the near future?
Yeah, morbidity and mortality measures, I think you're talking about MNE here, that would take a while. But what can definitely happen immediately is we can see definite outcomes, benefits being extended to women-related ailments. For example, let's talk about like a cervical cancer screening, right? Or a regular checkup during the pregnancy period, right? Or it could be post-pregnancy.
Normal calcium checkup for osteoporosis.
Absolutely. So all these, as I said, there are two areas, two niche. One is your primary health, and second is your specialty follow-ups. Both definitely can be easily pulled into the telemedicine as a technology. And over a period of time, I think we will be able to definitely articulate the measures, impact measures around the fact that definitely it is improving morbidity and probably also impacting mortality. Mortality may be slightly stretched, but definitely we can talk about other indicators to say that technology is really filling a gap and making an impact, particularly from the women receivers, the consumer side also.
Wonderful. Dr. Manik, we have been discussing a lot of facts, statistics, and overall numbers, but what I believe the participants would really like to connect with is if you can share some real-time stories. You said you have serviced 20,000 plus patients. during this period? Any interesting story that has struck your heart, that has held on to you, where because of your intervention, there was a dramatic save of life or some big problem was avoided? I think we all would like to hear
I
that.
think not only, yeah, thank you. So I think it's not just pre-COVID, also post-COVID. It is pre-COVID. I'll be telling you in a center, in a pharmacy where we are running our telemedicine center. So we are giving them a ECG device, basically a connected ECG device. So a patient got checked in a say screening camp through our device, and immediately the ECG was sent to a doctor in Apollo Hospital in Bhubaneswar.
Okay.
So, and the doctor asked him to check further checkup. There were blockage.
So the further
the
checkup also happened there?
yeah,
Okay.
he got admitted the next day, and also doctor supported him through a government sponsored program, because
Oh,
he was a
wonderful.
rural villager, he could not afford. There are certain like a chief minister fund and a health fund is there, so treatment fund and all. So doctor voluntarily asked the patient to come to the hospital, and he arranged the from different fund that is available from the government side. So this is, I think, when the patient he did not know about his condition, and in the next day he's in Apollo Hospital. So you just imagine how the real problem that we are solving on the ground. Another problem, in the post-COVID, I'll be telling you.
So this happened in Orissa, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
And the
So
village was?
Village was, I think, in somewhere around in Puri district. Yeah.
Okay, so which is like 80 kilometers from the city.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one more thing I'll be telling you, the one of the NGO worked with us during this post-COVID. They told us there are a group of doctors running an NGO. They're providing different services, and they are focused to serve telemedicine services for the community during this COVID time. And they were expecting that they published it in missed call number, and the number was like 1,000 calls every day we got.
Wow.
So the point is, what I'm trying to tell you, when you provide a quality service, it is not just telemedicine service. You will write the prescription, you will send to them, but the next thing is they will call back you. They got the medicines, they are taking the medicine, they are getting better or not. The support ecosystem. That means it is not that, because doctor cannot always take the call from the patient side.
True.
The most important, because after taking medicines, what is next? Are you going to give the follow-up, instant follow-up when he is requiring? So that is very, very important thing. So when we solve that, because it is not that doctor talk to the patient, we have a call center, we have paramedics, they answer other queries from the patient side, and this became suddenly viral. And even a day we got around 1,500 calls in a single day, and the
And you
NGO
were able to address all of them?
To be very honest, we could address around 700 to 800 calls, and the next day we are out. Again, it was piled up. So the point I'm trying to tell you, that when you provide a good quality telemedicine service, the community will adapt immediately. And the NGO told us, sorry, it is only 30 days. We can stop. We cannot give more than 30 days, because they are sponsoring the service. So that means, what I'm trying to tell you here, the most important, the quality telemedicine service. That means patient not just talk to a doctor once. He will call back you in the next 7 days, multiple times, because he feels that easiest access, that I can give a missed call to this number and somebody will call back me and address my problem. So that there is where I can say the real solution lies. So we need to give constant follow-up to the patients. So what Mr. Ramanathan told, that doctors are taking 15 minutes to prepare a prescription. The problem we have solved to some extent. We try to solve it within 5 to 7 minutes. How it is possible? We have a call center where paramedic sits. They take all the information before the doctor talks to them. So the doctor will not waste his time. When the patient is connected to the doctor, paramedic will be always in the call sometime when patient agrees. So the paramedic will pass on the information to the doctor, because these are rural patients. They might not share all the information doctor is willing to have. So in the in the intermediary role that played by the paramedics is very vital. And again, the doctor needs to also when he's going for the prescription, there must be auto pop-up, like they are going to give the same kind of patient, same provisional diagnosis, the auto fill of the prescriptions, so the doctor can
Okay.
immediately can change, and he can submit, and you can send to the prescription. So these are most important thing. We have already solved it, and sometimes we solve around 4 minutes to a patient, because the same patient, same kind of patient in the COVID, you just imagine the COVID scenario, the 4 minutes it's good enough, because the same symptom and the patient is telling the same problem, and he has the history of the COVID contact history. So the doctor will immediately finish the call, and he will tell that you can call at any time if you have any problems. So this can be solved in many different ways, but definitely what Mr. Ramanathan told, that if a patient have queries, definitely it will take more time. But also in the doctor side, we can also manage to finish it within 5 minutes. So these are our learnings. I'll be telling you that how we can manage to solve more patients in the limited time, and following all the protocols as per the telemedicine guideline, because the consent is very important thing, and which has been cleared after the government of India declared the guideline post in the March 2020. So I think these areas we need to consider, and these are the learnings I said here.
Wonderful. So I'll just ask something on a lighter note before we come on to the guidelines proposed. Mr. Ramanathan had said that the doctors want to charge 3 times the amount because they spend 3 times the money when they're going to telemedicine. Did you receive a similar side from the customer's perspective that we will pay 1/3 the money because we are not actually seeing the doctor?
No, to be very frank, like in the urban cities, for a super specialist consultation, people are paying 500 to 700 rupees.
Correct.
Super specialist. In this COVID, doctor told us, why are you charging less from these patients? There are so many doctors.
And what was the difference?
Difference around 50% difference. The pillar of success for the telemedicine, it revolves around the doctor. Why I'm telling again and again, for the rural telemedicine, if you want to see it's a successful, you need to engage doctors. And doctor also understands, because if they charge 700 rupees or 1000 rupees a urban patient, they cannot charge the same thing to a rural patient.
So you're saying that the doctors today are willing to charge 50% less if it's a rural patient?
Yes, in our
because
case it is
they are
happening.
Getting access to larger geographies.
Yes, and also sometimes they are getting referrals for suppose a patient being solved in a remote locations, they are also sending referrals to the other patient. They are coming to the doctor for physical visit. So I think it will evolve. This is our use case, and this is our learning what we have done. But it will evolve in due course of time, and more innovations, more innovative business models can be adopted for this. If insurance companies, we have now a 10% health insurance coverage. So in developed countries, you will see that 80 to 80% insurance coverage. So if the insurance come into the price structure, everything can be changed, and this will be really accessible to the patients.
Right. And one last question, since we are addressing women's issues here, how will telemedicine help address women's health issues?
What Mr. Ramanathan told exactly, I will repeat: the breast cancer, cervical cancer. Now there are connected medical devices are available. So these can be handled by a paramedic or a just trained technician. So who can do screening in large scale in the ground. So these reports can be evaluated through AI models. There are many AI technologies available already, and also this can be directly sent to doctors for evaluation. So, and to be honest, for the like pregnancy and obstetric and gynecology, so we need to have to connect the last mile health workers, the ANM, these like ASA workers or Anganwadi workers, because now all of them are using mobile technology. So we need to give them at least minimum devices so that they can send vitals. Suppose a pregnant woman. So we are building a product for remote patient monitoring for pregnancy, so that we can predict many things. like preeclampsia and all other different conditions during pregnancy. So these can be solved only if the devices or the minimum point of care devices available on the ground. So for the women issues, definitely for telemedicine will be useful if they talk to doctors. But if you want to really solve the problem, we need to empower the last mile health workers with minimum diagnostic devices so that they can do the minimum tests and send to the doctor, and doctor immediately can give medicines or prescribe.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Lalit. I would, before we close, I would like to take Mr. Ramanathan's perspective on how women's health issues can be addressed with telemedicine.
Yeah, I think we discussed it slightly one question ago. I think we talked about it. I think it will become a very important tool, not only in women health. I think as we discussed, it could be impacting on the screening. It could be impacting on specialist follow-ups. It could be involving the primary healthcare being delivered to women. All these places definitely can impact. But more than women, I think across the board, when you're talking about equity across, I think from a universal health perspective, I think telemedicine, the technology called telemedicine, has a very important role to play. So I think
right, absolutely.
Yeah, I think particularly from a primary and specialist OPD, specialist clinics. I think from that perspective, I think telemedicine is here to stay. Telemedicine is going to definitely make an impact, and probably that is one of the means for us to go towards a universal health situation.
Wonderful. I think that was very well put. Thank you so much, Mr. Ramanathan. Thank you, Dr. Lalit, for sharing your views and very intense thoughts. And it's wonderful to see that the doctors are also coming forward to serve the society, to give back to the society. And as they are one of the key stakeholders or eminent stakeholders of the healthcare system, and when they are giving back to the society, we look forward to seeing that lot of issues that were unanswered in the rural landscape, especially for the women, will get addressed now. And we wish you all the very best, Dr. Manik and Dr. Ramanathan, for assisting and guiding and giving us fresh perspectives on this whole thing. Thank you.